Okay. Has anybody anybody known anybody who has flown IMC or done approaches without their 6 in 6 months? Your hands? There's about 10 people there. Sometimes it happens. Anybody know anybody who's flown their Aerostar out of annual, where it just went and you have to get it to your mechanic and you're 3 days past or 8 days past? Show of hands. How about out of medical, where you had to fly and your appointment with your doctor isn't until next week? Show of hands, no one there? Nope. Good. Good. Let's see, what else do we have? But these are people we know about. How about this one? Anybody ever taken off more than, what, 200 pounds over gross weight? Ever? Okay, there's about 8 or 10 hands there. We know a lot of people who do these things, I see. How about landed, gassed up, and taken 160 gallons or more without having an aux fuel tank or a cheater? Show of hands, anyone? No one's taken 160 gallons? Oops. That's good. I'm glad that there's no hands on that one. Maybe I couldn't see Jimmy's.
So I can pipe in with one. I kind of changed the format on mine to have you ever considered. So imagine this scenario. This is a scenario I had recently. You're flying along, left alternator quits on you. So you deal with that. So now you're down to one alternator, and then the right engine starts losing oil pressure. So you shut it down, feather the prop. Now you're down to 0 alternators. Would you cross-feed?
No.
Why not?
Because it's too much power, you can't get back. You can't get back to maintain. You're locked.
Yeah, so the fuel valves will stay in the last position when you lose electrical power. Now you're on crossfeed, you can't take it off. Now you got a problem because your one and only good engine is only running off the wing tank. What happens when you're in the pattern making turns, running only off the wing tank? It's going to unport. Yeah, I made that dumb mistake, and I knew better, but I was under pressure, dodging weather, and later I thought, why in the world did I do that? So anyway.
Well, it's also true of the analogy of going into double crossfeed. Save it for the problem is the electrical problem. Can't get back to your main tank. All there to go.
Yeah, it's the same problem. You're going to end up with 0 power or surging.
But never go double crossfeed. Despite that was always the trick to get.
Yeah. I can't tell you why I crossfit. I had plenty of gas. I can't tell you why I did it. Don't know. It was just a dumb decision.
Is that one of the things that
Mike Eric just nailed me. I did not do a secure engine checklist. I was busy dodging weather, but I should have ran it anyway. Also hand flying the airplane, and there was all kinds of stuff going wrong. It was a airplane that had been neglected for a long time, and I was ferrying it for a guy. And anyway, yeah, I did not run that checklist. That would have saved me from doing that.
Years ago, speak out. It was a Canadian. Forget the airline I had. It was out of Canada. You might know who it was. They flying 767 across the pond to Europe, and they had an issue where they saw the fuel dropping a lot on one wing, and they decided, well, let's start cross feeding. they assumed that it was a fuel imbalance problem caused by whatever ignorant reason, but they had a fuel leak on one of the engines. So basically that engine kept dumping fuel overboard, and they kept cross-feeding from the other side, ended up barely making it. They glided the airplane into the Canary Islands or something, but of course it destroyed the airplane, but they made the runway. But that's another thing to think about is don't always assume that your problem is a fuel imbalance because you're not flying level. Think of the possibility that you are actually dumping fuel, on the one engine.
Right. Thank you. This is a bonus one, not on the list. Speaking of recent, applies to yesterday. Anybody go through the ceiling yesterday coming down VFR, coming in here, the 5,000 to 6,000 foot VFR? Know someone. Sorry. Know someone who came down. You don't count. No? Good. Okay, no hands on that one. How do you know? Let's see. Has anyone taken off their turbocharged aircraft? Taken off with one engine only making ambient? Know someone? Anybody were taken off with only 30 inches or at sea level? No? Sorry? Right, or whatever it is. Right, meaning with a boosted 700 type plane. Show of hands, who knows anyone taken off, just Bruce? What? Under what circumstance and what? To get to them? And how was that takeoff? Once the rudder was effective, you had. And what manifold did you run? Full on the other engine?
Almost, not quite. Good job.
And how was it when you lifted it, when the wheels broke? No. Okay. Eric?
Ted Smith did it in the original Aero Commander with the block in the cabin. So he had
The cabin.
as a demonstration to show how good the airplane would perform on one engine. So I thought it was good somewhere.
Don't try that at home. I can interject one. Another, have you ever considered? Sandy mentioned earlier about the flap actuator hoses being, one of them burst. The others were petrified, right? Was that the case? Have you ever considered what the condition of your heater fuel hose is? I might have given it away earlier. Can you run that video real quick? We replaced the duct coming off the heater in the Aerostar, and we started looking at the heater hose, and this is what we found. We sprayed it down with, what's that? So we took the hose off, we sprayed it with soapy water, and then we put compressed air on it, and you'll see the result. That's the reason we were in there, is to replace that duct, and while we were in there, we looked at that fuel supply hose to the heater. It runs right next to, obviously, a heat source. The whole hose blew up like a soaker hose. That was our heater hose, fuel hose, running right next to a hot heater. So your next annual might be worthwhile to take a look at the condition of that hose. Joel? Yeah. Yeah, that's a big danger. What's that? Yeah, that's true.
All right, here's one I hope will generate some discussion. Have you known anyone who's flown more than, say, I don't know, 100, 200 miles with one engine either in op or shut down?
Were you out to sea?
2 hours, 45 minutes. Is that the record?
That's right outside Cancun to Key West.
I'm sure your fuel economy was much better.
My wife was fine. She had a whiskey bag and it is what it is, baby. You don't stuck to the dates.
Right. And I presume you didn't announce to ATC or anything what was going on.
Oh, no, you're talking to Havana Center.
Fidel didn't care.
At that time, they had radar, but they didn't have mode C. So when I called in, I said, Havana Center, Twin Romeo, we're going to have to come out of 210. And I said, what's a good VFR eastbound altitude? She goes, medium on 9,000. And I said, well, what if I can't maintain 9,000? I already had left engine shut down. And she goes, medium on 9,000. I said, I didn't no sense in arguing with the woman, so I just started to descend until I could stop the airspeed on the boot. And that was like 5 minutes. She didn't know. I didn't take it. I just kept flying. And slowly, after about 45 minutes, I got just a few more knots over the blue line, and I eased it up about 25, 50 feet. So at least I was at 5,500 going eastbound. So I figured, well, if there's anybody VFR low level and they're going to Cancun, at least I'm on the right eastbound altitude. And flew into, and then I heard US Air 1514 up above me. After he got done talking out there in the center, I drove in and says 1514, which is pretty alert. You got a copy? He goes, yes, sir, I got a copy. I says, you talking to Miami? He goes, yeah, I'm talking to Miami. I said, could you relay a message for me? He goes, yes, sir. I said, tell them 20 alarm, we're on one motor, and we're going to be about an hour and 10 minutes late coming in for the customers. He goes, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, I'll pass it on. I said, so we just did all the flying. Like that, go to the drinks there, and wine away. I was happy. And all of a sudden we get to the ADAS, I think the maximum intersection on G765 that goes from Fishhook to Dayton. And all of a sudden I see orange and white, what they call them, LPs, chopper, helicopter, Coast Guard, just sitting there hovering. I got them zooming on out, put it up around there, follow your ride straight in, 29 Key West. Appreciate it, Captain. Landed their custom made, you know that. One looked like a turbine, one like a. You didn't get blown up? Nope, never got shot at.
And did you make the repair there?
Nope.
Okay. Then what's the second half of the story?
So I turned around after my wife walked away with the whiskey bag and go to sit in my house. I turned around and said, what's going on here? And the reason why I shut it down is the oil pressure started at 75 psi, and all of a sudden it kept ticking down, about every couple of minutes, it would flicker. And when our bottom red line is 25 psi. And it went from 75 to about 34, 35. I knew it was going to keep on going. I couldn't see any trails of oil coming out of the gallon. If I could have saw underneath the outboard turbo, I probably had a contrail coming out that tailpipe. Because that's where all the oil was going. I had up the turbo. And I didn't want to wait until the oil got down to the red line, so I just canned it. And it just kept on going. So when I landed, I pulled the top cowl off, no oil. Pulled the bottom cowl off, no oil. up, no oil. Three quarts of oil. My plumbing says if you go below 3 quarts of oil, three quarters? Look 3 to me. I bought a case of oil. I filled her up to 12 quarts. I told my wife, honey, come on. I did a full power run. Still got 29.5 inches. And off we launched. And I just leveled it about 30,000. And then all of a sudden the map just started going wow and swam again, just kind of bouncing up and down. I said, oh, she's coming apart. So of course I had to cut inland and my wife was like, good competency for, I think it was somewhere in Florida, center of Florida. Yeah, but anyway, she dialed up the radio, so I called in and I talked to her and says, hey, we're going to stop here and see there. She goes, oh, she says, you need a fresh pot of coffee? And I said, no, you got any oil? She says, yeah, we got oil. I said, well, grab me a case of, I use pretty heavy food. I says, grab me a case of oil. So she did. And I had a confidence since you had a fresh coffee. And the pressure comes right back up. And it's a little short of Gainesville, Florida. That's just a little short hop. They're heading in Alabama. And we fired it up. And it was dark by then. And I just used reduced power, oil pressure standing up there. And it slowly started coming down. We put the runway lights on. We come in and landed. Took care of it. And we got ourselves all out of there. The next day my wife says, what happened? I was just like, these turbos, these engines, they run high time with these motors. So, I'll let you know. So I'm running around so she comes in and she says, what happened? What did you shut that for? I said, well, speak up. So I turned around and I went through the books and I looked at my turbocharger replacement dates and times. And I had, out of the 4 turbos, I had 3 of them at 2,400 hours and the one that let go was at 2,500 hours. So the moral of the story is about 1,000, like Sandy said, about 1,000 hours on the turbo, that's about reliable, good safety. Time to pull off and get over all the I wouldn't recommend going to motorcycle. The airplane's got it.
So 2,400's okay, 2,500's not. That's the lesson? Lesson learned. Anyone else have a flow other than David Lunt, who was, a shutdown, long story? Yeah, pretty much.
Birmingham, Alabama, on Tuesday, and severe clear here. And out of 7, I filed for 21, and at 17, I heard a bang and plane veered to the left. So I leveled off at 17 and declared emergency, but I needed some time to, figure things out. And ATC was very fine, said, take your time. When you have time, let's, souls on board and minutes of fuel. So I was in a 700, so, my climb power is 2,400 RPM and about 36 inches, and everything was just smooth as can be, but the left dropped all the way down to 15 inches. And but I didn't see anything out the window. The prop's still spinning, so kept the power on, and ATC said you could stay at 17. I reported back to him and continued on for a little bit. I said, direct Dayton if that's, I was thinking, best option, all the brain power is here, and if I can get here, get it sorted out. Couple of handoffs with Memphis Center. The third controller's checked in. How are you doing? Looks like you're doing great. I'm going to undeclare your emergency. And I actually asked to go from 17 down to 13 to kind of test my theory and I thought I'd blown off a duct or something like that. And the engine came up with a few more inches of manifold pressure dropping down to a lower altitude. So anyway, I was on emergency for the rest of the way. Then when I got here, I thought, well, coming in, I don't want to do a go-around or missed approach or anything. So when I checked in with Columbus Approach, I said, well, a while back I had an issue with the engine and have partial power. I prefer not to do any go-around or anything. Could you let the tower know? And I said, sure. And then they decided to declare an emergency in my behalf after I gave them some information. And they'll do that. So I've never heard it. I've talked to some of you here that have never heard of anybody heard of undeclaring an emergency. So I declared an emergency. They undeclared it. I gave them some information coming in that I don't want to have a loaded up, number 10 for the runway and someone cut in front and I have to go around. So anyway, everything worked fine. I asked for the RNAV for 6 right, which is right by the FBO, and they had 2 other runways in use, so they have plenty of options to get people on and off. When I landed, they had all the trucks lined up on the left, and they told me to roll down. No one in front of me, no one behind you. Take your time, and I went on in. When I shut down, the line guys came out and said, well, you've got some oil coming out the back, and there's a little bit of smoke coming out of the engine with oil dripping on the exhaust. So turned out there's a guy that the FBO has here that's seems pretty good, and he's on it now. And thanks to Joel, who I called him about 2 hours before he was about to jump in the plane, and he happens to have a turbocharger. But anyway, it turned out the turbocharger self-destructed like yours. But all the way here, pardon?
Is that being auctioned off also?
Yeah, but all the way here, all the temperatures on the left engine, the oil pressure, temperatures, my JPI look great. I had no wavering of anything like that. If I did, I'd probably be starting to think, oh, I'm going to have to divert sooner. So I think I did the right thing, but everybody's told me to file a NASA report and be prepared in case someone challenges me on the decision of where to go. But yeah, I think I'll do that. But from all indications in the cockpit, and others kind of agree that, don't shut down an engine if you're still making power and all the parameters are reading great on your instruments. So I had down at 13,000 for most of the way. I had 20 inches of power, and on the right, it was 30-ish, and ran great. Just used 40 gallons from Birmingham on the left engine and 60 gallons on the right, and I was doing about 160 knots. And so that was that. And thanks for everybody helping out with getting parts and all that. So hopefully I'll be able to go back to California here at the end.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How did the poker factor on that emergency compare to your other emergency, where the co-pilot window blew out at
I've never told anybody about the story except for you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
How are we on time, Ken?
This is about 15 years ago. I had the whole family on board. My son, who's was going to dental schools, and the co-pilot, my wife and daughter-in-law were in the second row, and daughter in the third row. It was the day before Thanksgiving, flying from Southern California to Salt Lake City. And it was a cold day, high overcast, just north of Las Vegas near Echo Bay. People know the north part of Lake Mead. We were at 25,000. The temperature, outside temperature, was minus 25, if I remember. It was pretty cold. On autopilot, smooth as can be, and all of a sudden the co-pilot window completely exploded. And for a moment in the cabin, it's kind of like when you open a bottle of soda pop and there's kind of that vapor cloud. We had a vapor cloud for a couple of seconds where you couldn't see the hand in front of your face. My son was pulled out the window a little bit, and the headset he had on, the Bose headset, was ripped off his head, and when I reeled in the cord, there was nothing left of the headset. He had a light jacket on, and it had a hoodie, and when the hoodie came back in, the hoodie was all shredded. I'm not sure if it was the wind blast or pretty close to the propeller there. So I pulled him in, immediately put the plane into a descent. As I was going down, I declared an emergency, went down to 12,000 feet. And, but I could get it down really fast. And I told everybody to find their masks and get the oxygen. By the time we all got settled with that, we were already down to 12,000 feet. So I basically brought the power back a little bit, put it in like 5,000 feet mid descent. I turned to talk on the radio, had to have the volume all the way up. It was really noisy. We had one piece of luggage on board inside, so everybody found clothes to wear and layer up. It was really cold. I looked on the wind or the wind chill factor on a chart, and with the temperatures, it was off the scale. It was like minus 100. I don't think it was really that cold in the cabin, but outside it was. So we were given direct to, I asked direct Brigham City, where the flight shop is. And then the controller, I gave him the number there, so they called ahead. And Bo Bridges was standing out there on the ramp. When we taxied in, he thought we just had a cracked window. And when he could see into the, with the insulation hanging out the window and no window there, he was shocked. So we made it there and went all the way there, and they took care of the window. But anyway, I actually had another window blow out about 2 years later, back window, and a person got cut on his arm, but he was fine. We were at 23,000. Oh, I have 5.5 PSI. Everybody's been puzzled about the window thing. The only theory we have, Bridges, the flight shop looked all the windows. I replaced the pilot window by my request, but over the first few years I had the plane, I've had it for 20 some odd years. The first 5 or 6 years I had almost every window crack or blow up. Yeah. And the theory is that someone before me that had the plane had the windows polished and maybe over-polished them, because the condition of the window looks great. All the windows, even the front window, they look rather new. And so anyway, that's my story. Yeah, so maybe they over-polished the window and it was below the minimum standard. So I've had 2 explosions, several cracks, but I've got all new side windows now and I haven't had a problem in years.
Going back, David, I wanted to ask you one question. Any idea how many hours were on that turbo?
No, I don't. Well, I sent all 4 in about 8 or 10 years ago, and I'm averaging, well, the last few years I'm averaging over 200 hours a year, but up until about 5 years ago, I was maybe 100 hours, so I haven't done the math and figured it out. And I've just talked to my home-based mechanic back home, where he'll go on the hangar and look it up. So I don't have a figure yet.
Okay, but they're probably 1,000 or more.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Quick little story. It didn't happen to me. It happened to my airplane before I bought it. The guy that sold it to me said he had a turbo go, but in this case it dumped all the oil and smoke in the cabin. I mean, he said it got pretty nasty in there, so I don't know if this ever happened to anybody else where all that, I guess it was the one that was pressurizing the cabin the most at that time, so they got pretty stinky and smoky in there.
I had a more mild case of that. No smoke, but it was like a fine oil mist, and we had to have main turbo overhaul the turbos also because the seals went bad, so it was allowing oil to go into the bleed air. But yeah, it was at first it was almost it was hard to detect. It's like, it smells like oil, and we turned the bleed air off.
That's what he said. It started just with a smell, and then it got real bad.
Yeah.
They just ignored it and kept going.
Right. And the last one, near and dear to our hearts, do you know anyone who has busted minimums, say 50 feet on a precision or 200 feet on a non-precision? Show of hands. Good. Correct answer. All right. I'm glad there's no hands on that one. Nor mine.
Nothing else for me.
We good on time, Ken? Oh, perfect. Okay. Thanks.